Shoplifting in England and Wales is at a 20-year high. But while you might have heard of the wave of criminal gangs looting shops, one police force has told ITV News it's now dealing with a rise in quite different culprits.
I've had from a suspect during interview, when I've told her that she's been banned from John Lewis and Waitrose, is where am I going to get my weekly food shop? To her, that was such a major concern that she would not be allowed in Waitrose, not the fact that she's committed a crime.
So why do these middle-class shoplifters do it?
These people aren't shoplifting out of desperation, they are keeping those items for themselves and they're doing it for the thrill, really.
And how are they being dealt with?
It's almost like parenting, it's almost kind of humiliating them, and it's obviously taking the pressure off the courts as well.
I'm Faye Barker and this is what you need to know. Joining me is Katie Ridley from ITV News Anglia, who's been looking into this in Cambridge. So, Katie, just tell us a bit more about this. You spoke to PC Emily Jane Matthews, who we've just heard from there. So what did she tell you about these shoplifters and why they're doing it?
Well, I think we know that retail crime is on the rise across the country. We know that the cost of living crisis is obviously a huge impact. But what PC Matthews was telling me here is that this group of people, who she say are middle class people in their ages of 40 to 50, they've got good jobs, they're professionals, they're stealing basically because they can. They're stealing high-end goods like jackets that are £300, £400, and they're keeping them for themselves. People have said to her, well, you know, I shop at big stores like John Lewis all the time. I'm kind of entitled to taking a bottle of Chanel perfume or a coat. So what she's saying to me is these people aren't shoplifting out of desperation. They are keeping those items for themselves and they're doing it for the thrill, really.
Wow. And even earlier this year, the policing minister has said that middle-class shoplifting was driving up high street prices. And what have you learnt about the impact of these crimes?
I think it's very easy to say that shoplifting is a victimless crime. We hear that quite a lot. Actually, there's a huge impact. Like you said, the more losses these big companies or smaller shops have, the more the prices are going to be driven up, and then that's going to be passed down to the consumer like you and I.
And is this something we think, this sort of middle-class shoplifting, happening across the country, or is it a bit of a Cambridge problem?
Well, obviously I was focusing my report in Cambridge, that's what I've been hearing, but I can imagine that it's happening all across the country. Unfortunately, we don't have any data to back that up because the police don't record that kind of data, but it is probably something that is happening across the country.
And we'll look into a little bit more about how it's been dealt with. In particular, I think, PC Matthews, she is dedicated clearly to retail crime. And she does have a very bold way of tackling it, doesn't she? Just tell us about Wanted Wednesdays.
Yeah, this really surprised me when I was speaking to her. She is basically driving this new way of policing where she's thought, how can I get these people? She said she's seeing such a huge amount of people shoplifting. She really needs to do something. So what she does is she has this thing that they call internally Wanted Wednesdays, where if you are somebody that has never had a previous conviction, you don't see, they haven't got you on record, they don't know who you are, shops will send in CCTV across Cambridge, and she will post pictures on social media saying, do you know this person? And a lot of the time, people hand themselves in.
Wow, real name and shame, isn't it? Let's just hear from PC Matthews now about how she explained how it's working.
Every week that I post up, people hand themselves in. I'm receiving emails from people who are almost dobbing that person in, writing to say either they work with them or they're my neighbour. I've even had family members say, I'm really embarrassed, but this is my cousin.
So people not afraid to come forward with information. I mean, have you been surprised? Have they been surprised at how effective this is?
Yeah, they definitely have. She was telling me that, every week that she does post this up, it's not every week, but when she does post them up on Wednesdays, she has an influx of people handing themselves in, or other people handing family members in, like we just heard there. She says it's just so effective because we know that social media is such a good tool for communication now, and it is humiliating for people. They see themselves on there and they think, I don't want my family member, my friends, my colleagues to see me, so they go and hand themselves straight in. So it's really has become really effective for them.
It reminds me of when I've had to march one of my own kids back to a shop.
Yeah, it's like parenting.
Yeah, it is. It's like, you've done this bad thing, come on, you need to make it better. And So it's interesting how that is working. However, it's worth saying, I think, the maximum sentence for shoplifting goods under £200 is 6 months in prison. For goods over £200, it is 7 years. So they're doing this in Cambridge at the moment, aren't they, without people going to court, without going to the system like that. So just tell us a bit more about what methods they have been using.
Yeah, so they're using this thing called a community remedy, and it's a way of dealing with people that have not got any previous convictions. So we should say that these people, they're not on the system, they've not had any previous, they've got no criminal record. And what they're doing is they are basically saying to them, right, you've handed yourself in, you will now be taken off social media, and now we will take you to the shop and you will pay back the goods and apologise. So PC Matthews will meet them outside the shop. She was telling me that lots of people are mortified when she turns up in her full police uniform. Like you said, it's almost like parenting. It's almost kind of humiliating them. She will take them into the shop. They go in, they have to apologise to the shop. They then have to pay back the money that they owe, and then they're banned for life. So say, for example, it's John Lewis in Cambridge. They will be banned from John Lewis all across the country, not just that John Lewis, and Waitrose and online. And she said that this seems to be really humiliating for them. We know, obviously, the court system is so backed up. And she said a lot of the time, sometimes these cases get thrown out, they'll take too long to get to court. These people can afford to pay the fine, they're not ever saying they can't afford to pay these goods back. So she said this is actually more effective for them, and she says she's not seeing anyone else reoffending after they have to go through this. Like you said, it is like parenting. And she said one person said, where am I going to buy my olives from now? She said she genuinely is shocked by what people are saying. And I think in that situation, they're more humiliated than actually sorry about what they've done. But at the same time, it is working, it is effective. And it's obviously taking the pressure off the courts as well. So it seems to be something that's going really well in Cambridge.
Yeah, and of course, other supermarkets are available apart from Waitrose.
Yes.
Now, we have also heard a lot, haven't we, just generally in the news, talking about a two-tier justice system. Now, do you think this community remedy could be applied to more shoplifters in practice?
Yes, I do. I think it's important to say here, because when I was researching and talking to PC Matthews about this, I did put to her the idea that just because you're middle class doesn't mean that you aren't financially struggling. It doesn't mean that you're being hit by the cost of living crisis. And I said to her, how do you know these people aren't doing this out of desperation? And I think the answer there is they're stealing things that aren't necessary. They're not things that you need. They are high-end goods, and they're not going and selling them on and keeping that money for themselves. So I think it's important to say that. I think this could be applied to anybody, and it is available for anybody. It's just the volume of people they're seeing at the moment are middle class people, and as long as you haven't got previous convictions and you're not on the court, you're not on the system, this can be applied to you. And obviously you have to be able to pay that fine as well. I think that's also an important point to make.
I'm just wondering, Katie, how fair this is. People, for example, who may have shoplifted out of real desperation, like needing nappies or just some food, and perhaps if they've done that several times, I mean, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, so they wouldn't be offered the community remedy because they would have done it in the past. And I think it depends on how the police have dealt with them previously. But I know, speaking to PC Matthews about this, she's very clear on giving people the right support. So if, for example, there are people that she knows that are doing it out of desperation, she will signpost them in the right direction, maybe food banks or different types of services that they can get. So although they wouldn't get this, there would be other support out there for them. So I think it depends on the basis. And I think she's doing her best to try and treat everybody fairly, but everyone slightly differently, I suppose. So yeah, there's different options for different people.
Really interesting. Katie, thank you so much. And you can, of course, watch Katie's full report on ITVX, and we'll put a link in the show notes too until our next briefing. Thank you for joining us.